Cicely Mir is a powerful Jedi Master, and in the new canon, she was the one who taught Mace Windu the ways of the Force. Mir was born on the planet of Miriel, a world in the Outer Rim, far from the core worlds and the governance of the Senate. If the world Miriel sounds a bit familiar to you, it's because you've probably heard of it before. During the Clone Wars and the early years of the Empire, there were several Force users who came from the planet. Perhaps the most famous one was the Seventh Sister, one of the original Jedi Inquisitors, who Emperor Palpatine had recruited and trained for his Great Purge. Jedi Master Luminara Unduli was another famous Mirialan Force user. She's probably best remembered for fighting alongside Mace Windu in the central arena on Geonosis during the very first battle of the Clone Wars. Luminara was also the master for another Mirialan Jedi Knight known as Barriss Offee. Offee was one of the many Jedi during the Clone Wars who struggled with doubts about the Jedi's involvement. She couldn't understand how an order devoted to peace could claim so many lives in battle after battle. Offee would eventually betray the order and one of her best friends within it, Ahsoka Tano, by detonating a bomb within the temple. The explosion killed several Jedi Knights and led to, well, potentially Ahsoka almost getting thrown in jail. If you take a look at Windu's master, Cicely Mir, and the other Mirialan Force users in the galaxy, you'll notice a few familiar physical traits. They all have green or yellow skin, although there are a few other varieties that popped up in the comic books. They also have traditional black tattoos inked onto their faces. This was part of a coming-of-age ritual on their home world of Miriel, and each mark was unique to its bearer. It represented their unique skills and their role in the community. When we look at Master Mir, we can see that her tattoo patterns were fairly different, even when we compare to Offee or Unduli. Mir has 2 rows of diamonds on either side of the bridge of her nose that descend down towards her jaw, and on her forehead, right above the start of her brow line, 2 large black dots were tattooed, with one more on the center of her nose outlining a triangle. A little higher up, and in a slightly fainter shade of black, a giant W-shaped line with a hollow circle was placed on the upper part of her forehead. Mir didn't reveal the specific meaning behind these tattoos in the conversations we saw between her and Mace Windu, but I like to think that they meant leadership or perhaps compassion. Like her skin, Master Mir's hair and lips were also a deep emerald green. When on missions with her Padawan, young Mace Windu, Mir adorned herself in a traditional Jedi robe. Although beneath the robe she wore a special skin-tight suit made of a type of rubber-like material. While every Mirialan wasn't necessarily Force-sensitive, the Force played a heavy role in society. Cicely Mir's people based their spirituality and religion around the light side of the Force, and her people would regularly meditate and pray. With so many Mirialans present in the Order during the Clone Wars, it might be true that the species had a greater affinity to the Force than average humanoids. During Mir's service to the Order, she displayed powers and wisdom that Jedi Masters typically possessed. She detested the use of physical force, but she wasn't able to peacefully solve her problems. She had no issues beating up enemies. While investigating the disappearance of a Jedi Master at an outpost temple on the planet of Mathas, Master Mir was blindsided by a Gamorrean guard, but instead of withdrawing her lightsaber and cutting it down, she simply threw it over her shoulder, knocking it out cold. Later, when a thermal detonator exploded within the temple and caused the second story to collapse, Mir used her mastery of the Force to suspend the debris and the raging fire away from the congregation of people within the temple. Her most impressive feat was when she helped Mace Windu conquer the allure of the dark side of the Force. On that same planet of Mathas, Mace Windu tracked down a false Jedi Master named Druze. That pretender had exploited the natives of the planet by offering to save them from a terrible disease. Now, of course, Druze had no way of helping them, but he was a con man, and he was using the natives' ignorance of the Jedi to play to his advantage. When Windu caught up to Druze, the pretender shot Mace in the shoulder. The Jedi Padawan quickly withdrew his lightsaber and knocked Druze to the ground. He held his purple blade under the old man's chin and nearly pushed it through, almost like he should have done against Palpatine years later. However, this time he was pushing it to the back of Druze's head, but Master Mir managed to arrive in time. She urged Windu to stop. She convinced him that revenge, even if Windu thought it was simply justice at the time, was not the Jedi way. In that moment, Mir managed to contain Windu's anger and taught him how to avoid the seduction of the dark side, even when his emotions were at their highest. Master Mir would return to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant with Windu and Druze, but after that, we're not quite sure what happened to her. It's very likely that she continued to serve the Order and either passed away or retired before the Trade Federation set up its blockade on Naboo, and the Separatist movement got into full swing, leading us down into Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and then the beginning of the Empire. Hope you enjoyed this brief bit of information on Mace Windu's Jedi Master in canon. Now I've made a video of his master in Legends, and that one's pretty interesting too. Hope you enjoyed this video, leave a like if you did, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.